Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Russell County Board of Supervisors reconvened meeting at 5 p.m. in the Russell County Government Center. I'd like to first start off with call of order and roll call. Tim Lovelace.
Here.
Luann Wallace.
Here.
David Eaton.
Here.
Steve Breeding.
Here.
Horace Christian.
Present.
Carl Ray.
Here.
And Rebecca Dye.
Here.
Ma'am, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And remain standing for the pledge, please. Thank you, dear Lord, for giving us another day. Thank you for all the blessings that you bestowed upon each and every one of us and their families. Help us to understand your wisdom. You know and see all things. Your understanding is beyond our measure and our knowledge. But teach us, Lord, that we may walk in your way and your wisdom to help us make decisions that are right and true and what you desire of us. Help direct our thoughts that we may make things that are correct for our family, our friends, and the people of this county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like a motion to amend the agenda, please, to add our presentation from Dr. Brown from the school board.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to be inserted in front of, I guess, public hearing. Yeah.
All right.
I'll second it.
See? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we will amend the agenda and add Dr. Brown as a presentation before our public hearing. So at this time, Dr. Brown, if you don't care, we'll have you before. Discuss the school budget, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Was contacted by Mr. Lester last week, and he shared that the board had some questions concerning the school budget and the stimulus funds and such, and I'd be more than happy to answer those questions, Madam Chair. So I'd like, if acceptable, to open it to the board to ask those questions of me so that I might answer. I brought my material, and again, I don't want to go through both these binders, nor I think you guys do not want me to go through these two binders. So again, if that's acceptable, I'll open it up to the board to ask questions of me.
Okay, so I'm the one that caused all the havoc, Dr. Brown.
Okay,
So-
that's all right.
So I guess one thing, in looking at the budget, it's, the total funding from this year to last year, you jumped from 40-some odd million up to 57 odd million. And I understand that 11.7 of that is from this ESSER 2 and 3 or whatever, So my question is, and part of it, I saw the email that you sent, and you answered part of my question about what you intended to do with that. And understanding that that money is good until 2024. And I saw in your email you were talking about putting air conditioning in all the gymnasiums, which is great. Should have been done years ago. You were looking at a polarization system of some sort. And there were some other things, but what else do you have in mind? And what can those funds be used for, I guess?
Yes, sir. The funds are designed to be used to improve our pandemic response. So in other words, these funds need to be tied to some form of air quality, environmental quality, something along those lines that, again, if we were to, God forbid, have to deal with a pandemic or, again, an agent of the current virus reoccurring, we need and we are forced to use these federal stimulus dollars in that fashion. So, yes, the air conditioning for the gymnasiums, that has been provided to the Department of Education, and we have received approval from Richmond for that. Again, the issue there was humidity control, again, bacteria growth, that type of thing, with the temperatures and the amount of humidity that we deal with, especially during the summer with those buildings. So that was, again, approved. In addition to that, both boards worked on 6 years ago, some energy conservation programming through Train, where coal-fired boilers and so forth were examined and transitioned to natural gas and propane. That program had to be trimmed, and there were 3 high schools and Honeacre Elementary School that were removed from that program. Again, that was submitted to and approved by Richmond for us to use those funds toward the completion of that program. In addition to that, bipolar ionization systems were in process now of being installed in every building that we have in Russell County Public Schools. Matter of fact, they were at the school board office yesterday working their way through. They've been to Belfast, the Honeacre schools. They're going through Lebanon now. They're at the high school, and then they'll wrap that up and go to Castlewood. Again, that was approved by Richmond as well. In addition to that, the major renovation to the locker room, public restroom facility for Lebanon High School's football program here at Lebanon Middle School. That structure was built in the 50s and renovated once, and the restroom facilities for the public are inoperable. Again, the facilities when they were originally built were 2 locker rooms, and as football grew, the wall was taken down, if you will, between those 2, and now that's simply one big locker room facility. And again, it's in need of repair. It's again inadequate as far as plumbing and things of that nature are concerned, the number of facilities within that structure. So that was again another presentation to Richmond, and it was approved for a new structure that actually will take care of 3 things. It will be the visitor locker room facility and the home locker room facility and the rekindling of the restroom facility for our visitors as well. So we're actually taking care of 3 items in one with that. It's also going to be brought up to ADA specs. So again, we're excited about that program or that project, and that is to hopefully be put out to bid within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then, of course, the 5th project that is not stimulus related, but definitely of note, is the work that we've done with the Board of Supervisors, Board of Education, with the ag program I presented back in December. That is moving along, even though materials have skyrocketed and it's difficult to get those products in, even with the price being so much higher. But we are moving forward with that. They share with us that they are on time schedule to finish that before the start of the school year, so we're excited about that. But to answer your question in more detail, Mr. Breeding, these ESSER funds, okay, you had ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, also known as CARES. We had $1.1 million that was given to us this time last year, April of last year actually. Those funds, again, were used to purchase Chromebooks, also for hazard pay for employees and such. ESSER 2 funds, that's $3.6 million. We're looking at the bipolar ionization for that, which is about $600,000, and the boiler replacement that I shared earlier, $3.1 million. And then with the ESSER 3 funds, we have not been given access to all of those funds. At this point in time, the project for Lebanon, the field house at Lebanon Middle School, and the air conditioning systems, those will come out of ESSER 3 funds. With ESSER 3, that's $8.1 million. Those funds also have a required 20% set aside for instructional loss and mental health well-being, social-emotional well-being of our students. So that money has been set aside as well for those requirements. When it's all said and done, we still will have approximately $3.5 million left. And again, with that being said, that's money that we are gaining input as far as additional projects, evaluating if those can or do not meet the requirements from the federal government. And then again, we'll consider moving forward with those as well. But again, as you shared, we have until September of '24 to exhaust and incur the, ESSER 3 funds.
Do you have to have each project approved individually by Board of Education?
The more obvious projects, we get verbal confirmation. The boiler system was so obvious, I mean, that's, again, black and white, that we need to move forward with that. We're either going to have to replace them with coal or replace them with the natural gas and propane. And then the bipolar ionization, again, was an obvious. We got a verbal approval on that. The field house, we do have written approval. And the air conditioning for the high schools, we do have written approval for those as well.
Well, Dr. Brown, I guess I'm next on the list, but I have a concern, I guess, with some of the laws that's been enacted and brought our way, as you all know, with some of the policy reviews that I think our legal teams and stuff are working with other counties and stuff to look at this deeply, and I appreciate our attorneys being able to do that. I guess my concern is long-term plan on the budgetary side. If some of these things are enacted and apparently they're going to be enacted by law, and there's a mass loss of the ADM or loss of children that parents decide they're going to pull them out. They're going to homeschool them or going to send them to another educational process. That's a real concern of mine because, what's that going to look like on the budgetary side for the next budget session that we're going to have to be dealing with? I don't think anybody in this room wants us to raise taxes or wants us to be able to do that, but I think there's going to have to be a plan put in place to see what that pandemic looks like. Because I think it's going to be a financial pandemic if some of these things that's going against the grain with this area where we live, and that could happen. I mean, that honestly could happen. From what I'm hearing from constituents in my district, there's a lot of parents who are wanting to pull their kids out of public education in regards to some of these issues that's coming down the pike. So I guess from the financial perspective of this, what could it look like, or what could be the impact if we lost 100 kids out of public education? And I know that's federal, state, and local match funding, but it could be a very tragic incident for us to be able to have to deal with on the budgetary side.
Again, I totally agree, Mr. Eaton. Whenever we lose students, it has definitely a downward spiraling effect. When we lose students, we lose ADM. That creates an environment where we're not able to offer as much. We have people that become disenfranchised and move elsewhere, jobs. The economic development piece of it doesn't work. People do not come here with their businesses and they move elsewhere. So again, it's a downward spiral. In the same breath, it can be an upward spiral. We've done a lot of great things to attract businesses and so forth into the area, and we've worked hand in hand.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, we've worked hand in hand with Board of Board of Supervisors to speak when asked about our programming and to listen and build additional programs that fit the needs of some of our potential business partners. So again, you're exactly right. It's a very concerning thing, regardless if it's a policy-driven item or an economic-driven item. Both can have tragic impact.
Well, I do know, and I do appreciate all the working relationships that we've had, because we have put in a lot of great initiatives to attract and help these kids with hands-on type learning, and we've seen the results of that. We've seen the fruits of our labor, and when we put those initiatives in, it grew.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that. But I guess my only concern is this. I think that there's going to have to be a lot of communication and dialogue between both boards and working together to be able to see, what this is going to do and how it's going to impact not only our citizens, our community, our businesses, because I think it could have huge impact, economic impact on us.
Yes, sir.
I think it's unfortunate this is being forced upon us. And I know it's coming down from the federal level down through the state. And it's just very, very concerning. And I'll echo what David said. We've had a great working relationship right from the get-go. And we've done a lot of different things. We reinitiated the ag program, and we've initiated a race program, and we've just, you've been great as far as economic development and everything goes, and working with community college and educational programs that are key to the employees that we need and the companies that we have and the employees that they need. I don't fully understand exactly about the transgender and the critical race theory, that there is a decision that has to be made by the school board before the next school term begins. Is that correct? They have to draft a policy of sorts?
Yes, that's the directive from the Department of Education and from the legislators.
And it has to be at least as stringent as the state, at least on our level. If we have something that comes down from the state, we can be more stringent, but we can't be less stringent. So you're in the
Exactly.
same situation.
Yeah, we have we have a minimum threshold that we have to meet.
Well, I share David's concerns because I've had calls from a lot of people as well that say, I'm just, it goes against my religion and I don't believe this and I'm not going to subject my child to this. And so, I don't know if we're talking about 100 or 200 or 500. You don't know until August rolls around, quite frankly, But I fear that a lot of people are going to be looking for alternatives, So it would be good. I don't know how you plan for something like this, quite frankly. You just plan for the worst and hope for the best, maybe. I don't know.
All right, Dr. Brown, I've got a few questions, and I guess just refresh my memory on a lot of this stuff, because I've been retired several years now, and if anything's changed, remind me, tell me that I'm not correct on this. But after looking at your expenditures, basically, you've got your instruction. That's the largest amount of money that is in your budget. And is that all your salaries, your aides, your assistants, that's what you're putting in there, in that category?
Yes.
What all is going in there?
Yes, Madam Chair, and the instruction account, the majority of that is personnel, teachers, site level administrators, aides, again, everything with the exception of our cooking staff.
Because that's another. All right, in the event that we have a child that, you give yourself a little bit of cushion in there in the event that a child moves in and they need extra services. You might have to hire an aide in the middle of the year, and you're counting on that person coming in. Is that still the way you pretty well do it?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair. The requirements are, when it comes to IEP, there is no budgetary maximum, if you will, per se. So if we were to have 5 students move in the process of the year, and those 5 students happen to have an IEP and they have, several needs and so forth, we are by law required, regardless of cost, to supply them with those, needs and assistance.
And that might even include a bus aide if they have seizures. And you
absolutely.
have to have someone with them, okay?
Mhm.
So that pretty much hasn't changed. All right, your administration, attendance, and health service, that's pretty well self-explanatory. And also, your nurses at all the schools fall under that category too?
Yes, ma'am. That's mainly your central office administration, your nurses, and those benefits associated with them.
All right, the transportation, that's just your diesel, your gas, and I'm assuming you still do your annual contracts. It's gonna hold what it has been. We all know gas and diesel's going up, but that's pretty much all that entails.
Yes, Madam Chair. Bus purchases, leases, things of that nature. In Russell County, we, in the process of a year, we'll put 750,000 miles on our school buses, athletic buses combined. If you look at the life of a bus, if you want to be generous and say 150,000 miles, we're wearing out 5 buses a year. And we try to, if funds are available, to replenish those. Some years we can, some years we can't. This past year we were not able to. This year we were hoping that we can. But, you know, again, those miles keep going whether we put new buses on the road and replace those. But basically, again, 750,000 miles a year on our buses. But yes, you're right. Our bus drivers, maintenance, and so forth, or mechanics, excuse me, are included in that. The gas and diesel, and again, that's a variable. The rate that we pay for that basically is market value, and then they do provide us with all the pumps and so forth. So we have 15 cents above market value for the price of our gasoline and diesel, and that's about 125,000 gallons a year total between those two.
Then operation and maintenance service, that's still just the daily operation of their school buildings, right?
Yes, Madam Chair, our maintenance staff will be in this item. In addition to that, the electric bill, the water bill, et cetera, again, those daily things that are required for the operation of the school.
Insurance on the buildings and all that, okay. Then, of course, my category, school food, and I remember all that. You still do the annual contracts, but I'm assuming it's just like it used to be. If produce goes up, then they just send it on over to us. We have to take, if they raise the cost of food, produce particularly, right?
Yes,
So-
Madam Chair, we have you know, a contract. We do have a consortium now with other school divisions to help with the pricing and so forth, and we do have a provider. But yeah, there is fluctuation within those prices. They are required to give us the lowest price available, but again, that price, again, much like I was speaking of the cost of lumber earlier, you know, that does fluctuate as well. And again, that is an enterprise fund, which means that is separate from operations. Those funds are required to solely be used for the support of our foods and nutrition program.
Most of those, I know when I retired, most of our food service folks are just part-time. Is that still that way?
Yes, we've evolved from full-time to part-time with our the majority of our food service. Our managers are full-time, but yes, most of our cafeteria staff are 29-hour employees.
And then I see your facilities with the 3 asterisks. Is that what you were referring to with Steve?
Yes, Madam Chair. Normally that's a much smaller amount, but again, those are the ESSER funds, and again, I shared the 4 projects that are coming out of the ESSER. I mentioned the 5th one, which is through our you know, our relationship and again through our reversion funds. But the 4 projects that we have going on now, and then again we should have roughly $4 million, a little bit more than that, available for, I guess, the second round of projects as we receive some recommendations and evaluate those.
Debt service, that's paying off bills that we've had, renovations that's come through for the years, things that's happened in the last 10, 15 years. Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
I guess the most recent, Madam Chair, would be, I guess, the train project that I mentioned 5 years ago. That probably is, I guess, the most recent. You know, we have purchased buses since then, but that's something that we put in our budget.
And we don't fund that entire debt service anymore. I mean, I'm saying us, Board of Supervisors, you all incur a lot of that. You pull that from your own budget. Is that correct?
Some, yes, ma'am.
All right. You don't have a debt reserve category. You don't have any rainy day funds were held back.
No,
No, just year to year.
No, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, the
That
one
ended.
item there where we have contingency reserve, again, an explanation there. We are going through transition with federal requirements on our accounting. We have to break down things where historically they were division level. We have to break them down now by school. So we do not know, with that contingency reserve, that truly is not a reserve. That money is dedicated toward those individuals that retire and sick leave, buyouts and so forth at the end of the year. That's what that money is reserved for. But the only problem is we don't know if they're going to be, bus drivers or maintenance gentlemen or secondary, or if they're going to be at Honecker High School or Lebanon High School. All those things come into play. So we just have this as a separate account, and that account will zero out as the year progresses, and it will fill in to those more specific schools and, again, line items that apply toward those people as they retire.
It's just about what. And so I did look because it used to be ESEA for me, but now the ESSER, ESSER, that is Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief, because I had to, that's new since I retired. I did look that up. So, all right, any other thoughts or comments that you'd like to tell us?
Technology, but that's.
Oh, yes, I forgot, Tim. I'm so sorry. Technology. Well, would you like to explain some of that?
Well, that's mostly,
That-
a lot of it is state funding, which is still in support of the online SOL testing initiative. We have to maintain a certain computer-to-student ratio, certain amount of handheld devices, networking, internet access, and there's also a local match that goes along with that. There's other funds in there as well, online subscriptions like the accelerator reader, the parent notification system that calls when, it used to be when there's no school, but that's not as much the case anymore. But anyway, there's several online subscriptions, and the technology technicians and the instructional resource staff is in that as well.
Does your technology pay for the school lunch program, the point of sale now? Or is that, or Dr. Brown, does that come out of another, that
The-
comes out of the food service?
It does. It does.
Okay. Dr. Brown, I appreciate you sending that 9-line item budget over, but that's really not what I had in mind. I wanted a detailed budget, just like we used to get. I had this for, 16 and 17. And it's not so much that we want to control what you're spending it on.
Yes.
It's just that when people come to me and ask me how much money we give the schools and want to know what you're spending it on, it's tough to say, well, education, technology, transportation. They want a little more detail in that. So I can say, well, we've got a gifted program that, we do. It's a lot of grant money. I don't think a lot of people understand how much grant money is really built into that $46 to $57 million number. So if it'd be possible, I'd just like to get a copy of that detailed budget.
Again, Mr. Breeding, absolutely. The
Okay.
issue is we don't have that detailed of a budget
Yeah.
ready yet.
Yeah.
Our board
Well-
is going to receive that
Right.
budget hopefully next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
But that's no problem. I'll definitely get that with the board's, my board's blessing. I'll definitely get that over to Mr. Lester.
Some of the money that's coming down the pike, I guess, on that additional funding that you're gonna receive, I know on the line items that you've listed, to be able to fund those, is any of that money gonna be earmarked for bonuses or for any individual or anybody?
The money can be used for hazard pay. We've used, again, a large portion of ESSER 1 for that. And then with the CRF funds, right before Christmas, we were able to do that as well. And I do believe the board members are discussing the possibility of again, some type of, again, hazard pay moving forward at the start of the new year. But again, the key thing with the money is that this money is not reoccurring money. So the only thing that it really could be used for is some form of hazard pay, which is a one-time, non-reoccurring expense. The DOE is quickly told us that it cannot be used for salaries or anything of that nature, other than hiring new folks that have a specific purpose for a temporary length of time. Those could be someone that we would, that we could hire, but again, that would be, that individual would have, I guess, a sunset clause in their contract, that, at such and such time that contract would be null and void.
So when that money runs out, or you give them a contract, once the money's gone, that job's gone?
Yes.
Dr. Brown, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the reversion money back from the school systems, the county.
Uh-huh.
And I can track it from 2016, which was an anomaly, I think, and we got like $1,205,000 back, and I understand how that happened. Next year, we got $626,000 back in 2017. 2018, we got $497,000 back. 2019, we got $556,000 back. 2020, we got $535,000 back. So that in itself is kind of your contingency fund, as I understand it.
Mhm.
So, and understand that we did some projects out of some of that contingency money, like roofs and things of that nature. And I think we're doing the ag building out of it this year.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So that's kind of a built-in contingency fund, as I see it.
It is, and I guess to speak to that, Mr. Breeding, we efficiently spend 99.5% of our budget just about every year. And again, I think it's poor management if at the end of the year we have no money left, because that tells me whomever's in charge of that money is going out and buying 2 million pencils, when that money can have a better purpose. So you're exactly right. But as I shared earlier, some of the purchases, some of the expenses that we deal with are fluid, much like the cost of the wood to buy material, sheeting material for the for the ag shop, much like the fuel. I shared earlier 120,000 gallons of gasoline and diesel at market value plus 15 cents per gallon. Well, again, if we have a refinery shut down because it's been hacked, think about how that, we were a day away, 2 days away from considering shutting down schools, okay, because of that very issue. So you can imagine what the price, well, we all know what the price has been as far as us publicly seeing it. Well, us seeing it commercially, again, it's still increased. So there is some fluidness to our budget. There's things like, again, at the end of the year, the last thing I want to do is have all of our money spent by buying 2 million pencils, and then all of a sudden we blow an engine out of a snub-nosed bus. And now we need to repair that. The last thing that I want to do is come back to this board and say, oh, by the way, we've spent all of our money. We've got 4 weeks to go before the end of the school year. I need more money to pay for this. To me, I think that's very poor management. So I don't want that to happen. So what we do is we do look at those things that we have purchased. We're looking at purchasing and so forth, and we look at our finances as the year progresses. And if we have an approved purchase that we do now have funds for and we feel that we can safely move forward with that purchase, at that point in time we do that, because I want the money to come back to the citizens. I want to be good stewards of the money. And again, I think, as I shared earlier, that we've done an incredible job. I mean, we replaced, not repaired, we replaced the roof on Lebanon Middle School in 2016. We replaced the roof, not repaired, on Lebanon Elementary School in 2017. We did a roof repair in Lebanon High School 2018. We built a concession stand press box restroom on the baseball field at Castlewood High School. 2019, we redid the press box at Honaker High School. 2020, we took care of a wall that was falling on the back half of Lebanon Elementary School. And that had to be done. We had the contingency funds, reversion money, to do that. It did not cost the Board of Supervisors or the Board of Ed a penny, because that was money that we jointly had saved and were able to apply it toward that. And the ag shop today. So we've taken care of over $2 million worth of capital improvements. And that was money that wasn't budgeted. money that we didn't have to go and find, money by us working together and just being good stewards of the taxpayer money.
One of the things that's been approached to me, which I addressed is 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, is in our budget sessions, is how do we get to the point where we're going to be competitive with surrounding counties with our teachers' wages, our janitors, our cooks, our lower level employees? It's a real concern of mine, and I think it's a concern of all of us, because if we don't fix it, we're losing teachers, and now with pieces of legislation or laws that have been enacted, you know, then if we lose kids. So we got a two-phase thing that we're dealing with here. You know, Washington County and Tazewell, Buchanan County, you know, paying a very, I guess I'm gonna say lucrative amount of money per teacher than we do. And that can's been kicked down the road so long, you know. That's something that's got to be addressed. And I've asked numerous times for a short, mid, long-term plan. We're not going to fix it overnight. I know that.
Sure.
But it's going to have to be looked at. I'm very competitive in sports or anything. You know, I don't like to lose. I don't think none of us here do in this room, or you, Dr. Brown, or anybody. And I think for us to be competitive, and like you talked about earlier, with bringing new industry in here, and we've done, I think, a very good job of bringing new jobs, new industry, enacting education policies and new programs for kids. But if we never get competitive with surrounding counties, or I'm not saying we got to be above them, I'm just saying get close enough to where we can attract people to live here, work here, and build a home here to stay here. Instead of driving 30 minutes down the road in Wise County or Washington County or Tazewell County to work, it's just a real big concern of mine. And I know it's not going to be anything we can fix overnight, but I would love to see us work on a plan. Now, me and Steve worked on a matrix plan that identified the issue when we first got elected, to try to work through that, to see how we get there from here, because we know we have got to be competitive in nature, whether it be industry-driven or education-driven or whatever. And we can't put it on the backs of, you know, on our taxpayers. We got to figure out a way to maybe cut the fluff and figure out a way to get it to a point where we can do this.
Yeah. Again, well said, Mr. Eaton. I totally agree with you 100%. And this was an issue that neither the current board or even the previous board, nor this board or the previous board, really had anything to do with. This was something that you were left with. I mean, the history, if you go back, we had a 10-year window of time where one raise was given, okay? But yet, you know, again, the insurance companies don't care. They still increase the, you know, the amount of the, you know, the premiums and so forth. But yeah, you're totally right, and I totally agree with you. And again, it's really going to take something very dynamic to fix that, because with our budget, 85% of our budget, 80 to 85% of our budget is personnel, whether it be their salary, their benefits, their retirement. But when you look at the school budget, 80 to 85% of that is personnel. So where could money come from to increase the personnel monies, all right, so that we could share that with personnel? Again, you know, that's the question. Well, you know, again, we can't do it out of the ESSER money because it's non-reoccurring funds. These have to be funds that are reoccurring every year, so we can't do it out of that. You know, again, when you look at operations and so forth, when you look at, you know, we got to have buses, we got to have fuel in the buses, we have to have electricity in the buildings, have to have water and so forth. I mean, when you look at the overall picture, it is a very, very daunting task. And you're right. I mean, it's going to take. It probably would take a $3 to $4 million influx of reoccurring money and it wouldn't put us near the top. It wouldn't even really put us in the middle, but it would definitely put us more near the middle than where we're at now. I mean, we're at the bottom, but it definitely would get us off of the bottom. But again, that cost would be, I'm thinking $3 to $4 million of reoccurring money every year to make that happen.
One of the issues is this reoccurring, is these state mandated raises, you know, throughout the state, because the gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger if all you're ever able to do is that state mandated raise, because, you know, 5% of a salary in Washington County is a lot more money than 5% of a salary. So that gap just continues to get wider and wider and wider.
It does, and you know, there's, you know, I guess there's a big misnomer out there as well. When we hear that the state's approved a 5% teacher raise or a 5% raise for schools, that's not accurate. Okay, that's not true. What they've done is they've approved the state's share of the appropriation for a 5% pay raise for SOQ funded positions. Okay, what does all of that mean? Well, a state share, the LCI, the Local Composite Index, breaks down how much of the responsibility of public education in each county or city, if they have their own city school, belongs to the locality and how much of that belongs to the state. We have one of the top 10 LCIs in the state, okay? Our LCI is 0.23 and some change. So 23% of the expense associated with operating the school division falls to the Board of Supervisors in this case, okay? And then we talk about SOQ funded positions. That's a formula process, okay? The SOQs is a 29-page document available on the Department of Education website. But basically what it is a book of formulas. And it simply says this, you get one teacher for every 24 kids for this third grade class. So where do non-SOQ funded positions come from? We got SOQ, what are these non-SOQ funded positions? Where do they come from? Let me give you a very, very straightforward example. Let's say we had 72 third graders. 36 of them were in Honaker, 36 of them were in Castlewood. Now we know that's not the case, but again, it's just an example. How many teachers are we going to need for these 36 kids over here in Honaker for third grade? 2? We're going to have 18 in each class? Okay. Same thing for Castlewood, right? So we're going to have 4 teachers, and I think everyone would expect us to have 4 teachers to cover 72 kids, third graders especially. Well, the problem is the SOQ formula is 24 to 1. So 3 times 24 is 72. The state's only going to acknowledge the existence of 3 of those teachers. So that 4th teacher, and again, they're not marked or anything, okay? But that 4th teacher, funding-wise, is non-SOQ. Now what happens there? What happens there is that the raise is 100% on the locality, okay? The state doesn't give us a penny for our non-SOQ funded positions. We as a locality have to eat that, okay? That's on us to find. So when you were looking at a 5% pay raise, that sounds good when you first hear it, but the reality is they're putting you as a Board of Supervisors in a tough spot because of that 5%, the state is expecting a certain dollar amount to come from the locality to pay their part of that. And again, it's even compounded now because we have a minimum wage issue that we're dealing with now. The minimum wage is increasing in steps, and our employees work on contracts, so we're going to have to establish contracts for our employees. And this is the second time. We actually dealt with a small increase last year because we weren't too far out of whack with with that raise. But with this new raise that's kicking in, okay, that was significant for us. We're going to have people that are guaranteed right now, regardless of what we do, if they're employed, they're going to get about a 12, 13% increase next year because of the minimum wage requirement. So those people that are operating those positions that don't pay a lot are going to see a pretty significant raise this year because of the minimum wage requirement. And you're looking at the entire clerical scale was redone, the bottom half of the custodial scale was redone. Really every classified staff that we have, their scales were redone with the exception of the upper half of our custodial scale, our mechanics and our maintenance men, and bus drivers. And those will, or some of those will see it this time next year. So that's an additional expense, and again, where's that money going to come from? But we're looking for over $250,000 to cover an increase in minimum wage for next year, because again, Russell County Public Schools is the largest employer in Russell County. We have over 600 employees. So that's another variable that comes into play.
I would like to say in relation to what Mr. Eaton said, I'd like for us to be able to be competitive, but I think that we brought this up in another meeting. In order to be competitive, we as Russell County citizens have got to have the revenue coming in. Jobs would be one thing, increasing taxes, but we don't have it. So even though we were hoping and wishing, we have got to see reality come about for jobs to come in, people be spending money, building homes and things. So it's a wish list, but we got more than just that. We have got to work to see those jobs come in. And it's not, like he said, it's not gonna be overnight. We can begin to work toward that, wish toward that, until we don't have the revenue coming in, like some of these other counties. You could take the coal and gas severance tax at Buchanan County and some of the rest of it. We don't get that. So they can be able to do more than we can because they have the revenue coming in to do so. Am I right?
Yes, yes, you're exactly right. And the work, again, that the Board of Supervisors has done with attracting businesses over the last, 3, 4, 5 years is again, noteworthy. We do have great roads, quick access to 81. Again, I think we and that's something, again, that 120 school divisions cannot say. Very, very affluent school divisions, very, very prestigious school divisions that cannot say that. So again, it's something that, it all boils down to our teachers and staff and the hard work they do and their willingness to work through some diversity. But yet everything we can do for them, I'm totally in support of, and I'd be more than happy to sit down with, Mr. Lester and, again, my Madam Chair and whoever else, to talk about these things. But again, for us on a school division, we can't do it by ourselves. It is going to take a partnership to move us from the bottom as far as teacher salaries are concerned, because again, our budget is 80 to 85% personnel as we sit here today.
I think, we're in the same boat as far as the increases in the minimum wage. It's something we're going to have to look at on some of our people, probably not as drastic as your group, but, we've talked and talked and talked. And, we can sit and talk about it forever, but we've got to come up with some sort of plan to address this, and I don't have a clue what it's going to be. But now's the time to act, and maybe past time to act. And one other comment you made about the reversion funds and doing the projects with unbudgeted money. That money was really budgeted. It was just unspent budgeted money. It wasn't budgeted for that particular line item. So
Yes.
it was either more than it needed to be to start with, or somebody did a great job in being very prudent with those funds. So.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question possibly, and maybe this has been discussed already, and so if it's gone over top of my head, I apologize.
It's okay.
But one of the things that I have been looking at is other divisions or other counties and the teacher pay in those counties. But what I'm not seeing in some of these issues that I've been looking at is the insurance rates that those folks, now I know you're not going to have the answer to this, and I don't expect you to, but I want to throw this out there because perhaps our insurance company that we're using we might be doing a better job of taking care of the folks as opposed to another county that's maybe paying higher, but it's actually what their take-home pay is not what we're taking home possibly? And I don't have the answer to that, but I'm trying to dig that out. Do you have any notion at all about, if a teacher left here and went to another county? And it looks like a really good raise when they go,
Yes.
on paper. But when the net income comes back across, what kind of net income are we looking at? Does anybody know the answer to that?
We do track that. I will say that we haven't done that recently, but we do have those conversations. Mr. Fletcher, with the Director of HR Responsibilities, does reach out and secure that type of information. And we try to prepare that for our insurance meetings that we have. We have at least 2 insurance meetings. There's been times that we've had 10 here recently trying to fix our broken system, okay? And we have really went far with that. We've went from a reference-based pricing system to a 50-50 plan to a 70-30 plan. And this upcoming year, we're going to go with an 80-20 traditional plan, for lack of a better word, with actually lower out-of-pocket expenses. So I can share definitely that our Employee Plus One and Employee Family is one of the top programs in Region 7, a top 3 or 4 program. Now, our employee only is a little more expensive. We kind of put that on the backs of our employees, and we've noticed that, we've talked about that, and we're going to try to address that moving forward. But to think 4 years ago we were dealing with reference-based pricing, and now we've progressed to the point now that we have an 80-20 plan on the docket for next year. Yes, it's been something very, very concerning of our budget committee members, and they've done a tremendous job. Mr. Lovelace, Mr. Breeding, Mr. Bostic, and Mr. Gibson with guiding us and bringing us out of that. So we're in a good place right now with our insurance. But to answer your question, we're very competitive with Employee Plus One and Employee Family coverage. Okay, again, a top 3, 4 out of the 19 school divisions in Region 7. And the employee only, we're more in the middle of the pack for that, maybe a little below middle of the pack for that group. But again, we've got some great ideas, and we're going to hopefully be able to move that forward and make those improvements in the future.
All right, is the matrix plan that David was talking about, is that the one that you and I had discussed that we were going to meet about the employees getting their level funding up? Is that you developed in 2016-17? Is that you still have those numbers and that plan to get employees together? Is that what you and I talked about a couple of weeks ago?
Yes, it'll be something I'll have to get back on, the top of my desk.
Okay.
But yes,
Okay.
I have that information.
All right, thanks. All right, any other? Anybody?
This is probably not related to the budget, but it's been brought to my attention of asking the possibility of people that don't have children in public school, but private school, charter school, and whatever. I understand that may be something that the state has to decide rather than the board here.
Now,
What I mean?
now we have school choice available in the state of Virginia, but it's not funded. All right, so, a person can be homeschooled, they can go to private school, they can go to, again, a charter school, which we don't have. They can go to a Christian school, a private institution, and so forth. That's fine, but they're not funded. The voucher movement has never made it off of the, off the governor's desk. Okay, there's been years that it hasn't made it out of the General Assembly. There's been years that it hasn't made it out, but been vetoed by the governor. But as far as the school board being able to, write a check to a parent and say, here's the funds associated with your child, and you can do with that as you please. As far as picking a school, that's not something that's legal.
Katie, some of the information I got on the computer was relating to that, wasn't it? About the state, you could do an application, and actually, account would be set up to fund a student if they qualified under certain circumstances.
That was a deal that
not passed that he just referenced. In 2017, there was a bill in the General Assembly, and it actually passed the House and the Senate, and it was vetoed by the governor. It was talking about education, parental choice education savings accounts. And I think that's what Dr. Brown was referencing, but that was never passed into law, and that would have to be passed into law by the General Assembly for anything like that to be legal in the state of Virginia.
That's one in the material that you furnished us that they said the governor vetoed?
Yes.
Now,
I thought I went on and read that another one that passed.
There's charter schools, which is something a little bit different from that. And so that is something that's an option in Virginia, but it's not like having your free choice in a private school or anything like that.
I can speak to that. I mean, basically, a charter school is a public school, but it has a focus. So you could have a charter school for the performing arts, and they have a more enhanced program for the performing arts. You could have a charter school for STEM, and it would have a greater emphasis on, again, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So, yeah, a charter school is a public school, but again, it is one that's been chosen by the board to have a certain academic focus. The graduation requirements are still the same, so you still have to have 3 math classes. You got to pass one with a verified credit, so forth and so on, through all the graduation requirements. The most prestigious, charter school in the state of Virginia and our 3 high schools all have the same graduation requirements. It's just that they have a different set of offerings that are skewed toward one particular idea, like performing arts or STEM.
Well, I guess I more or less thinking upon homeschool or Christian school, those wouldn't be charter school. And right now, they don't get paid for that. The parents don't. They have to pay more or less a tuition for that child to go to that particular institution.
Yes, that's between the parent of that institution. Yes, sir.
I like to put forward the statement of, I like to see where the parents that are paying taxes and not going to kids not going to public school to be able to be reimbursed some way, because they are paying taxes, most of them, especially if they're on real estate. And somewhere along the way that those parents that send to Christian school or homeschooling could be reimbursed for that.
That's, I'll let the legal counsel speak to that, but as far as my knowledge is concerned, that's illegal.
I know you got I had a number down around 200 or 300 people at either Christian school or homeschool now in Russell County.
We have
About 80 homeschool.
Yeah, normally we have about 80 students, parents that choose to homeschool their child. And then with the 3 private schools that we have this year, the numbers were 36, 58, and 7.
7. That's the numbers I've got.
Yeah, and those numbers are in line with what we've seen historically over the last several years. But yeah, we actually have to reach out and engage. In January of every year, we reach out to our to our friends in private schools, and we ask them, federal funds are available to you. Here are the federal funds that are available to you. Are you interested in securing and using these federal funds? And then they indicate yes or no, and if they say yes, then we'll continue that dialogue, and we'll set up a meeting and establish how those funds have to be used moving forward. But as far as I can recall, all of our private schools have said no to that because of, again, the federal requirements associated with those federal funds.
And the restrictions of how you spend the money now.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Brown, I looked on the Department of Education website about homeschooling and private schooling, I guess, and they keep track of all that. But I looked, it was maybe in last year's numbers, possibly. But I saw like 118, I think, in homeschool, in what I assumed was homeschool. And then there was another like 50 some odd in a religious exemption. Would that be the Christian schools?
It would.
Okay.
And that's a fluid number, Mr. Breeding. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, that's something that we deal with all years, people moving in and out of that. They'll bring their students back to K-12, and then, you know, someone else will move into the Christian school, or what have you. But, yeah, the numbers I have are 36 for, I guess, Castlewood Christian when this document was completed in January, 58 for the Learning Center, and 7 at Spring City Baptist.
That's the numbers I had.
Okay.
Plus, 82.
Yeah.
Homeschool.
Yes, about 80 homeschools, and again, that's been, you know, fairly consistent.
And that's a snapshot of that particular time and day, isn't it? If I
Yes, ma'am.
remember doing that right. It was on
Yeah,
that,
exact same
like-
thing. It's a very fluid
yeah,
environment.
flows, comes and goes, okay.
Mhm.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for Dr. Brown? Any thoughts, any concerns? Yeah,
No, appreciate
Anybody?
you guys. Again, we've done a lot of great
Thank you.
things together. All right, thank you.
thank you much. We appreciate you coming in. All right, our next item will be the opening of our public hearing on our 21-22 budget and the 22 tax rate public hearing. So if anyone has any comments or wants to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and give us any concerns on our public, on our budget. And Lonzo, would you like to speak any more to the budget, or would you rather do it after they have their comments? Okay, all right. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead, sir. State your name.
Nathan Kaiser. I had a question, and I don't know if Dr. Brown can answer this, or maybe it's just asked and answered. But our budget, and I'm going off of last year's, the $47 million. That averages out, if you take the debt service out, to $13,617 per student. The state average spending is $12,216, and the state average of funding is $13,169,000. That's the average for the state. Every school figured into that. So according to those numbers, we are overfunding by $500 per student average, and yet we've got the third lowest pay of teachers in the state. And Dr. Brown was talking about raising the school budget by a couple $1 million or several $1 million to help pay for teacher increases in pay. And I'm having a hard time figuring out why we're spending more than the state average and we can't get better than third from the bottom on the teacher pay. So that's one major concern there, and asked and answered probably. But another thing we need to look at is the homeschooling and private schooling. And I understand with COVID it increased quite a bit, but I think you're going to see that increase sustain. And on top of that, we've got the other issues: critical race theory, the transgender policies that are required by the school board. There are many people here tonight that have major concerns with that and are very, very seriously considering, and very likely will, remove their children from the public education system. And this is not a new thing. This is something that has progressed over the years in the curriculum. It's something that's progressed in the bureaucracy of the Department of Education. This is built into the system. These things are just now starting to rear their heads. But our kids are getting educated. They're reading books about sexuality, about things that make you blush to even talk about. They are getting anti-American, anti-race, unity curriculums forced down on them. And very many people here tonight, and this is why you have so many people here, and there's even more, that have major concerns. I have a petition here signed by 824 individuals, right here, and I'm glad to show any of you these, of people who want to have the option to get out of public schools. Now the issue is they're paying taxes and they're held hostage, basically financially, to the public school system. If they want to go to private school or Christian school, they have to fund that out of their own pockets. Absolutely unacceptable. Now, I understand Dr. Brown and what Katie is saying. State fundings, to Orsa's point, are off limits. That's illegal. The county cannot do anything to touch those. The county can't touch the RLM, the required local match for the county. However, for every student that drops out of enrollment, that's more money, less money that's going to be going to the public or to the public schools. So, my suggestion to the school board or to the board of supervisors here is to let's take a first step into looking into what we can do at the county level. And I'm not talking about state money. I'm talking about the county's money. What we can do to help these parents afford at a better rate these homeschool options, private school options. We need to take a first step now to make that move, to start that process. And I would like to see the board tonight make that a priority, set up a commission. I'll volunteer. I'll be one of the first ones to volunteer. I'll do it pro bono. I'll do it for free. Looking into what we can legally do. I've got Delegate Nick Freitas I talked to 2 days ago. For you who don't know who he is, he's a delegate of Culpeper. He's one of the best delegates we have in the House of Representatives, or the House of Delegates in Virginia. He has pledged to me to support us unequivocally. He is going to help us get connections with people who can help fund getting the legal stuff that we need to get this done. Now, Dr. Brown's right. It's illegal. You can't take state money, but we can do whatever we want with local money. Okay, so we need to take a look at this. I'm asking the board tonight, and I know it's not part of the budget, but I'm asking the board tonight to take that first step. And I know there's a lot of other people that probably want to talk to this point. But this is another reason, because of the enrollment drop that we're going to see, without a doubt, that I recommend to the board, and my request to the board is to fund the public school system month to month, because we're going to see a drop off. You put the funding to it 100% today, it's gone to the school, and you won't recoup it till January. Or actually next year, fiscal year, excuse me. So you need to consider that strongly, because you are going to see people leave. Because no matter what the school board passes, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. So I'm asking you all to do those two things. On the budget, consider funding month to month. And on the school choice, please consider taking that first step tonight. Let's see what we can do. Thank you.
Anyone else that wants to speak?
Thank you for this opportunity. I've never been to one of these before and never did really feel need to. But you feel like a lot of that stuff is getting pushed down your kid's throat.
State your name, please.
Oh, Stephen Dameron.
And
Stephen Dameron, D-A-M-R-O-N.
And live in Swords Creek, correct?
Yeah. And you was my teacher in elementary school, so.
Shh, I was only 3 when I was teaching, y'all, 3.
But there's a lot of things that's come down that's being sent down our kids without no choice to make room for someone else. It's our place as a parent to teach our children from the time they're born that they are boys and that they are girls. There's no in between. In the beginning, the Bible said in Deuteronomy 22:5, the woman shall, talks about wearing that which pertaineth to a woman, and man wearing that which pertaineth to a man. Anything outside of that, it's an abomination to God. For a woman to dress that way, or for a man to dress as a woman is an abomination. God put man and women here to populate this earth. If Adam hadn't have followed in the footsteps that God wanted him to, that Adam would have never had a generation. He would have stopped because he would have died. You had to have a man and a woman to reproduce. And by them wanting to move in, we're asking our children to take this morals, the Christian values that's been instilled in them, put them to a side, to agree with the LGBTQ on what their agenda is. I've got my kids at home. I teach my kids at home. I know what they get taught. But yet I pay property taxes. I taxes on everything that I've got. And I still had to budget my own kids' education. Because I don't agree with what our schools has come to. How would you feel to have a 5-year-old girl walk in the same bathroom as a 7th grade-year-old boy? It's not going to flush. It ain't going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt somewhere. And all we're wanting to do as a society is fit in. We don't want to hurt nobody. They don't care about hurting the Christian values as long as the worldly values are sitting in front. We've got to stand up somewhere. Either we stand apart or we stand together. But we've got to stand for what we believe in. What he's talking about, the county monies, I don't know all about all this stuff. I know 2 + 2 is 4. And David, I know if my kids at home getting taught, they should have the same equal value as someone else at school. Just because they don't believe in what they're getting taught at school, they shouldn't be punished to not get it at home. And I think that we need to look at this over. I know a lot of people in this room, and I know that we've all got the same values. But I can't understand how that we can go against what God teaches in His Bible. And I heard Miss Di pray a prayer, Lord, help us to do that which is right in your eyes. And that's what we need to do every day. I'm a retired coal miner. I was a coal miner by choice. Y'all run to be on this board. But if you're a Christian first. Then you're a member of this board. If you can tell me that you can't vote with Christian values, you're not a Christian. You've got to put God first, your family first, then your school. God ought to be more important. And if you get outside, if you teach your young'un to obey the Lord, and you'll go to heaven, but then you put those beliefs aside and say, well, we can't bring God into the school, you're teaching your young'un a double standard. We've got to teach right. I hate it for children that live in a household where the parents raise them. If you're a boy and you feel like you're a girl, then accept that. That's a lie. And the schools have stepped in a lot of areas and helping teach that. And the government is wanting it to come down full-fledged. I don't want my kids in the same school, in the same restroom. My little 5-year-old girl being in there with a 12-year-old boy in the bathroom. We've got a school that's empty up in Givens, and if they're this strongly on it, let them give them their own school. Don't put them in the same restroom with mine. And I thank you for your opportunity. I'm not real smart when it comes to all this stuff, but I know you're either for God or you're for the devil. So.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Pastor James Nunley here locally in Lebanon. I live in Lebanon, resident in Russell County for many years. I first want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening and the freedoms that we have to do so and share these concerns and thoughts. As a pastor and a concerned parent citizen, Russell County, I'm greatly saddened, truly greatly saddened with the direction of our education system in this country, in our state, and quite frankly here in our county. I do so appreciate our educators. I don't want them to take that wrong. I so appreciate them and their efforts, and I truly can't imagine how difficult their roles are. They're facing these new changes, these changing times that we're living in and the challenges they face. With the driving agenda to normalize transgenderism has been talked about, critical race theory in our schools, we're truly faced with a massive epidemic not covered in media outlets, honestly. As this agenda has placed many families between the proverbial rock and hard place. Now, having said that, I'm very aware that there's a functioning school board in place to be a go-between between us residents and the school system. I do understand that, and that's not your specific role. But I firmly believe that action at the county level can benefit us, can help us with these things. It'll be a great assistance to many who are faced with a very difficult decision as this agenda further infiltrates our local schools. I'm well aware that our state leaders have voted down legislation around school choice or a voucher system, however you want to term that. But in spite of that, I would like you each, individually tonight, to consider establishing a foundation step for giving our residents a legitimate choice in education through a county-supported voucher system. And I agree with Brother Nathan, not state funding, not federal funding, from the county end. I wish to be very clear that I feel this step must be accompanied by understanding and proof in writing that there be no further overreach from the county or from the school system in imposing any stipulations upon the schools chosen by those individuals if there were to be a foundation established. We don't want further infringement on the freedom to raise our children and educate them accordingly. If residents were truly given a choice by providing equal rights through funding, everybody's screaming about equal rights. What about equal rights through funding to those who choose differently? The numbers were wrong, by the way. We had 95 students at the Learning Center this year, not 58. 95. And a rather large waiting list for this year because we can't fit them. Given that choice, I feel that it would allow parents who have a religious and moral belief that far supersede the ungodly agendas being force-fed to us from Richmond, would give us the often downplayed and seemingly unattainable opportunity to follow those beliefs and do what is best for our families. Please prayerfully consider this as you prepare to approve or deny the proposed budget for 2021-2022 school year. Thank you very much for your time, your consideration in this matter, and I do appreciate your service and what you're doing. I know it's not an easy place to sit, but I do greatly appreciate your service. Thank you.
Anyone else?
This is the first time
Okay.
I've been here also.
Hey, state your name and
My
address,
name
please.
is Della Miller, and my name is Della Miller, and I am a resident of Swartz Creek. I don't want to take a whole lot of time, but I just as Pastor Dameron spoke, Miss Dye, what a beautiful prayer that was, and there was several amen that I noticed and or heard, and we also did the Pledge of Allegiance. That Pledge of Allegiance is under God. That's what this nation was founded on, was God. This is the whole reason why they came to this country. And now we're starting to change everything. And the Bible speaks that a nation that turns against God. And, you know, I teach my son. It took me 18 years to have him. He's a miracle of God. And, you know, and here I have him in school. And David, he was on your ball team. I mean, he struggles in a lot of things. But he has a fear to go to school with this going to be with the transgender and people coming into the bathroom. He says, what about us? What about my right, Mom? And that's why I'm here today is to say that my son will be pulled. I will teach him at home. And I have a question for Mr. Brown. I wonder how many children were remedial this year altogether. How many children were remedial? Were they taught at home instead of taking them to school because of all this COVID? You know, where's all that money gone? You know, because I'm sure that the toilet didn't flush that much. You know, I mean, you can save a little bit here and there. You know, I mean, I work hard for my money, and I am very, I take every bit of our money and I spend it wisely because that's what we're supposed to do, and I'm sure y'all do too. But here's the thing. I spend my money in this county. You see, when I buy a vehicle, I buy it in Russell County. I don't go to a different place and do that. And so here's the thing. If this is about money, if this is about the money deal, then there's church buses. I'm sure that would take their, you know, that the churches would let them have the school buses if money's not there. You know, we're supposed to be a community of love. We all are on the same team, right? And I don't understand why everybody's fighting against each other. We need to do the right thing, and the right thing is to make right choices for our children. And if you want the money from the county to stay in the county, then, you know, you're gonna have to help us here. Because if not, I will not spend a dime. If I gotta go to Washington County, I'll go to Washington County. If I gotta go to Tazewell, I'll go to Tazewell. And I'm not by myself. Because of everybody in here. If you want the money to stay in the county, why don't we outreach and say, okay, guys, we're gonna do this, we're gonna fight the government, they're not gonna push these laws down on us. And then if you want support, like you deserve it, then be there for us, and we'll be there for you.
Anyone else?
Name's Lynn Hess. I also pastor a church, and I second everything that these last three guests have said. But I want to focus back more onto the money part of it. I was privy to some information this week that absolutely astounded me about our county. $1.1 million for the operation of the central office. We have principals that's making over $100,000 a year. Why in the world did I ever go to the coal mines? How I wished I'd have become a teacher. My. We had people working at the coal mines that had 3 bachelor's degrees. Some of them even had doctorate degrees, not making this kind of money. I think that this board and the school board ought to look at the budget of how much people's getting paid. There ought to be a cap somewhere. You've got principals making over $100,000 a year, plus then they've got an assistant behind them that's making up around $70,000, $80,000 a year, and our teachers are only making in the 30s. There's something wrong with that. And from what I'm hearing, almost everything comes down from the state, how our schools are run and how the money is spent. So really all we need is somebody just to dictate where the money goes, make sure it goes to the right place. We don't need nobody with no bachelor's degree. I can do that. I run a budget at home. I run my own business. But I'm going to tell you, the money that's going into the school board is not going where it needs to be going. I don't mind paying the taxes to pay for good schools, good teachers, good facilities. That I'm all for it. I want our kids to have the best. But I don't want overeducated people getting overpaid neither. Like IT men making around over $100,000 a year. Come on. I mean, you really need to investigate, in my opinion. That's all I've got to say.
Anyone else? If you want to speak. Okay.
My name is Wayne Hubbard, and I'm a Swords Creek resident as well. And I just think someone said the number, maybe David, 100 kids might be pulled from the school system. And I think that's a very extremely conservative estimate of the kids that'll come out of the school system. At $13,000 plus per student is the same numbers I saw, and the spending at $12,000 is the same numbers I saw as well. I think we're talking 1,000 kids plus. Now, you want to talk about budget impact, and that's what we're here to talk about, is budget. That's a large amount of money, guys. It's a large amount of money to Mr. Brown and the school system that's going to be missing. You're not going to really need that $57 million come next year because of the amount of students that are going to be, in my opinion, pulled. And I don't think it's just an opinion. I mean, I talk to my neighbors. I'm a small business owner, and I budget as well. And sometimes we run on tight budgets. But if we lose that kind of funding, that amount of money per student, and we lose 1,000 students, think of the impact. And that is something that you referred to, David, but I think it was just a very conservative estimate. I think we need to look at it in reality terms, not a low estimate, but let's try to figure out what that number is to the best of our ability, because 100 kids is nowhere near what's going to be pulled from the school system. And I understand that the laws are coming down. It's not you guys that are passing these laws. I understand where they're coming from. But we as a county, we have to take a stand, because we won't need a school system and the funding that's going to be needed from the state and federal money. We're not going to need near that much again, because the kids are going to be pulled. I just think that impact is something that's not being considered strongly enough, and I'd like to ask you guys to prayerfully and carefully consider that impact, and for our kids, you know, they're innocent, they're helpless. Adults are making decisions for our children, and they have no opportunity to defend themselves. All they, our religious and moral ethics are as important to us as whatever it is that is important to the LGBT community. And what I've seen come out from Facebook and different social media platforms from the Russell County School Board meeting last month is how hateful that we were. We're not filled with hate. I don't hate those people. I pray we can find the right kind of help for them. That's my prayer. I don't hate any of them, and it's not hate, and it's misconstrued in our nation and even at the county level at this point. I think that disagreement somehow evolves to hate. Because I disagree with someone doesn't mean I hate them. I disagree strongly with these laws, but I don't hate people. But think about that impact. Thank you for your time and for hearing me patiently today. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hey, I'm Jessica Witt. I'm Swords Creek. So I did speak at the school board meeting, and I kind of just want to reiterate that. I'm not in any way saying that I do not care about anyone that's transgender. It's not my right to judge. It's only my right to love. You know, that's a decision we each have to make. I don't want to see any kid have violence against them because of something they believe. Whether they say they're transgender or not, I don't think they should be bullied. I think everybody should be equal. But with that being said, I also have a 13-year-old daughter who goes to high school this coming year. It terrifies me to think that she's going to be in that bathroom and nobody can tell me that she's going to be safe. I do not think that a transgender kid is the person that we have to worry about. I do think it's the door that you're going to open to other people. It is my choice on how I'm going to educate my child from here. I hate to take that experience of high school away from her. Some of the best days that I remember. I understand there's parts of the law that we're going to have to figure out how we're going to make this work. I pray for those that have to make those decisions. But with that being said, I guess what we're asking is at least give us a little leeway. I mean, you got to account that there's probably going to be kids dropping out. I mean, we just live in a small area. You're in the Bible Belt. You could be one of the first boards that starts trudging the way to figure this out. You know, our governor won't give us the rights to have freedom of choice and have that funding and a voucher. But maybe as a county, you know, you can help and paying those bills to the school system on a month-to-month to see what's going to happen. To me, is going to be the smartest way to handle that money. And, you know, just to see what's going to come down. And so as a person that was employed as a teacher's aide for several years, I can tell you that my pay was not enough to pay for groceries for my family. Thank goodness my husband had a good job and he was able to let me have that time with the kids and be on their schedule. It was a blessing. But my pay was, I took a complete cut in pay to come there. It was a blessing, but it was not enough to pay for our groceries. The whole entire time I was there, I was visited once by someone from central office. I mean, I had, you know, great help with the principal and those types of things, but you're talking people that's making 70 to 100,000 plus, and you don't come to make sure that your policies are being carried out. I also worked for Head Start for many years. I was a specialist. Part of being that is if you had policies, then how do you know they're being worked? Do you go? Do you make sure? Do you check? Do you guys get reports on what they're doing out in the school system? Because their job is not to sit in the office. Their job should entail being out there to help your teachers, your people that are getting paid nothing. I just think it's a time that we take a look at that and make sure our money's being spent the right way, that we're not paying people more than what they deserve, and that, you know, your underpaid people, can they buy groceries for what you're paying them when you got people making $100,000 who still get the raises that go out? So I guess, you know, just think about that. Don't close the door. Leave the door open until we can figure this out. Thank you.
I'm Pastor Don from Green Valley Baptist Church. I live on Green Valley Road, right next to the church. As I've sat here and listened, this is my first time being here. I appreciate the prayer of Miss Rebecca. But I think that this is bigger than dollars and cents, although that is big, and I know that's a concern for all of our parents. This is a question of values. This board, I am quite certain, after listening to the opening prayer, stands on the principles of God's Word. Many of us know what God's Word says. This is a time in America when this board, you were elected to stand up for the principles of the Word of God. This is a time in America when we as citizens are going to have to stand on God's Word, stand with God, and stand for what is right. It is time in America for us to tell our government, those in the state, no, we're not going to take this anymore. You're going to have to listen to us. My hope is that you would remember that just as I will one day give an account to God for the decisions that I've made, so will this board give an account to God for the decisions that you make. My hope for the school board is that the school board would come together with this board in unity, that they would know, this board and the school board would know that the citizens of Russell County stand behind them and stand with them if they will stand up for what is right and they will do what is right. It is time, Dr. David Eaton, you said it's time for the school. I hear that we can't figure out how to raise teacher salaries. You said, well, we've got to look at the fluff. I think it is time to look at the fluff of the salaries of those in the school office. It's time to take a good look at every item of the budget, a detailed budget. It's time to look, and it's time to do, and it's time to act, and it's time to stand up for God, and it's time to stand up for God in America today, and it can start right here. And let's pray to God that when it starts here, a revival will begin from here that will sweep this nation, and we will come back to God. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Emily Rogers, and I didn't know I was going to speak tonight. I live here in Lebanon. My husband and I live here, and one of the points that I would like to make is we have served as youth pastors for 3.5 years, and we have seen teenagers do things to get attention. And so when parents or when teachers cannot even question students saying, oh, I'm transgender, I'm questioning my identity, how do we know that there are kids that are not doing this inappropriately to maybe get photos of students in the opposite gender's bathroom or locker room? And so that's just something to consider. I think a lot of parents will pull their students out. We homeschool for this very reason, and I have a lot of friends, and we've actually come together. We've formed a homeschool group in this area because we don't want our kids indoctrinated with critical race theory. It sounds trendy, it sounds cool, but it's not. is about equity. It is not about equality. We want equality in America. That's what America is about. Equity means, oh, because this person is black, they need a boost. Or this person's Mexican, they need a big boost. But because this person's just a white male, we need to put them all on the same playing field. And that's what America is not about. And so we need to fight that in this community. Critical race theory is rooted in socialism. And so the other thing is I also want to bring up the vaccine issue. Right now, it is under emergency use authorization, and currently we have the Vaccine Injury Court in America. $4.4 billion has been paid out to people who have injured children and people who've died. If it is under emergency use authorization, your child gets it and dies, do you know what you can do? Nothing. You cannot go to court. You cannot sue anyone. You get no payout. Currently, right now, myocarditis is on the rise. The CDC is investigating it. The vaccinated population of children from the ages of 12 to 17, they're only 10% of the vaccinated population, but they are making up over 65% of the cases of myocarditis. Somebody who's 80 years old and gets the vaccine and maybe they have 10 more years of expected life expectancy and they get myocarditis. They could probably live with that. I mean, it would affect their quality of living, but you give it to a 10-year-old, what's that living for the rest of their life? And so there will be parents who pull out because they don't want their children to be the lab rats, and it's not okay. And the other aspect, these are made with cell lines of aborted babies. It is a sin in the eyes of the Lord. So if this county allows that to happen, we are sinning before the Lord. And so, we need to set up a voucher system so parents who want to honor the Lord to protect their children, they have that option, and they can get their tax money back and give their kids a great education. And even if we don't get the money of this county, you know what? Teaching them the Bible is better than anything they're going to get in public school.
Anyone else want to speak on the public hearing of our budget?
My name's Debbie Lampkin. I've been a long-time citizen of Russell County, and I've been sitting here looking at the seal, the heart of Southwest Virginia. I've never been ashamed to say I'm from Lebanon, Russell County, Virginia, USA. And I'm the proud mother and mother-in-law and grandmother. That's why I'm here. God is first in our life and everything. And what the Bible says is what I've tried to teach my children, my grandchildren, and live a life before my family and friends to reflect that God's first in everything. I'm proud to be from Russell County, and I know and respect most of you all, knowing you. And I expect one woman stood up and made the difference to take prayer out of school. One county in Virginia can stand up and make a difference in our state, a state that we have grown up being proud of all our lives. And what's it coming to? It's not so good to be so proud anymore, Virginia. Please make a difference. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Is there anybody out in the lobby that would like to speak? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jeff Plasker, and I'm from Swords Creek. I would like to just say it's not that the Christian people hates the transgender. Because as Christians, we love them all. And a lot of them, it's been deceived that they are that way, that they was born that way. God don't make no mistakes. He make the man and he make the woman. He don't make a in-between. And I just want to say it. I understand that there's a lot of problems that it's going to take a lot of effort to fix. But our local government has to stand up to what's up there in Richmond and let them know that we're taking a stand for what's right, for what Jesus died for us for, that we can have our religion, and they're not going to take it away from us by sending laws done here to us telling us that we have to put boys and girls in the same bathroom. I don't care who says what, it's not right. And when it comes right down to it, we're going to be judged for what we do. Each one of us going to be judged for standing up for what's right and what's wrong. And as long as I can, I'm going to voice it. If it ain't in line with the Bible, and it ain't going to be right. And the good Lord has blessed this part of the country. It's just now getting here because I've been all over the United States, and we have had to deal. It's been all over the United States, and it's moving in here now more and more. So I would like to ask you, please, stand up for the Lord and vote the right way on anything that pertaining to transgender sex. It's not that we don't love them. I'll take them to church with me anytime they want to go to church. I'll pray for them. I pray for them daily. But I want this. The problem is the devil has tried to take over, and we're letting them. We let them take prayer out of school. When LS is coming up, and there'll be more, and it's going to have to stop. And we're asking y'all to help us stop it right now. Thank you.
Do you want to speak, sir? Come in.
My name's Chad Lampkin. I'm from Hansonville. I guess it'd be the Moxon district. I'd just like to say that, I think pretty much everybody here must be in agreement to what's already been said by everyone else, and I'm in agreement. But I would like to, the camera's not working outside, so we can't see in here, and I don't figure you can see out there either. I'd just like to be sure you know that there's about 60 people outside that are in agreement with everything that's been said so far. And I'm 100% in agreement with, we can't break the law. I mean, and if what Dr. Brown said is right, that it's illegal, we don't want to do anything that's illegal. But as far as I know, we are in charge of our county funding. And I would like to say that I am 100% for using our funding for, we homeschooled our kids from the time our son was in second grade, and he's 21 now. We foot the bill on all that. We didn't get, I'm not saying this to get any gain for myself personally, but we have a fight for future generations here in this county too, on top of that. My children are going to live here the rest of their life more than likely. I mean, that's what my prayer is. Who knows, they may go somewhere else. But I'm proud to live in this county. I love this county, and I love my neighbors. I wouldn't change a thing. But I think the sense of everybody here is we can make a difference, and we don't have to do anything illegal to do that. And I'm asking you and actually begging you, take a step, go out on a limb. And the county will be behind you if you do this. I mean, and we do appreciate your service. It's been said before, and we appreciate what y'all do for us every day and every time you have a meeting. But like I say, it will not go unnoticed if we go out on a limb here and do what's right. Thank y'all.
Anyone else? Any of the folks out in the lobby? Anyone else want to speak on our county budget?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we had several people that made some comments here tonight, and I think that it would be good if the public had some clarification on that. And one of those comments came from Pastor Lynn Hess, and he stated about the $1.1 million in central office. And so I'm just wondering if I can put Dr. Brown back on the spot, that you would like to be able to talk about that a little bit so that we can get clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
First of all, that's not accurate information. It's a very common document that's FOIA'd every year. This is the document in question. And the information has the annual salary, monthly salary, and then in the comments it talks about the stipends and so forth associated with advanced degrees, and if they are, the supplements as far as being an administrator and so forth. So the person who originally made the claim that the Central Office Administration was $1.1 million is wrong. They added that comment section in to the annual salary that had already been calculated The annual salary actually already includes those comments. So that comment actually is over, or right at $200,000 off. It's inflated, almost $200,000.
Thank you.
Yes, it's 900,000.
Was he saying if someone's got a degree, they're not using it, they're.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Dr. Brown, could you expound on that a little bit, please? And the audience, I'm sorry, I'm not the chairwoman, but we don't have conversations. So if you'll get the questions, we'll be happy to ask those of Dr. Brown.
Absolutely, and this is something that I would have been happy to explain if anyone had reached out to me and called me or wanted to stop by and have a meeting. I'm more than happy to speak about any of this. All this is open, foyable, transparent information. There isn't one single thing that I've shared that isn't, again, open. So I'm more than happy to have this conversation with anyone at any time. But again, this information, again, is about $200,000 off. But the way it works in public education, if you have a bachelor's degree, that's the minimal requirement to be a teacher. And if you choose to go and get an advanced degree, which would be a master's degree, then you do have an opportunity, once you secure that degree, to receive an advanced degree supplement of $2,000 to $2,400, $2,600, depending on what school division it is. Okay, so that's common in all school divisions that I've ever heard of. Once you go back to school, get an advanced degree, you receive a small stipend for that. And then again, when it comes to being an administrator especially, and whether it's a principal or a central office administrator, one of the first things that people, I think, miss out on is the fact that a teacher's contract, and the salaries, by the way, for administrators are based off of teacher rates, what they would make if they were a teacher, okay? But the first thing that people need to realize is we have 12-month contract for administrators. They work 12 months. Teachers work 10. So if we have someone who applies for and gets a job as a principal from a teaching position, possibly, it doesn't happen often, but every now and then. But theoretically, that person, let's say they're making $40,000. Well, the first thing we're going to do is take that salary, divide it by 10 to get a monthly rate of $4,000 a month. And then we're going to multiply that by 12 because they're working 12 months and not 10 months. So before they take on any additional responsibilities, anything of that nature, they go from 40 to 48 just because of the fact that they're working 2 more months, okay? Then you add the advanced degree. They have to have a master's degree to be an administrator, so that's $2,400. And then the stipend, which the stipend hasn't changed for over 10 years. The stipend for our well, no, let me back up. That's not true. The stipend for our principals hasn't changed for over 10 years. We actually did change some of the smaller assistant principal ones a few years ago. But then you would add that stipend. So if you were a middle school principal and whatever the stipend is, $10,000, $12,000, $10,000, you would have that added to that. So you'd go from 40 to 58 or 60,000, 62,000, somewhere in that ballpark, from being a teacher to taking on the responsibility of being the principal of a middle school. But again, the biggest piece of that is, or a big piece of that, not the biggest piece, but a big piece of that is simply that you're going to work 2 more months, and you have to be compensated for those 2 months. So that's how the salaries are calculated, and that's how the $2,400 is figured in there. A high school principal is actually the highest. High school principal is a lot of after 4 o'clock time put in being a high school principal. You have the graduation components and guaranteeing that everyone meets those requirements, etc. So the stipend for a high school principal is $20,050. For a central office administrator, it's $16,000. Okay, if you're the assistant superintendent, I think you get $1,500 for wearing that cap. Okay, and again, those are all published, by the way, on our website. They're all sitting there. But again, thank you for the opportunity to clear that up.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that's,
He referred my name,
Okay.
and I wanna clarify, I apologize for the misinformation that I give you. Maybe I did my math wrong, but you totally missed the point, sir. The point is that the central office is making a lot more than what our regular teachers is. That's my point. What, $200,000 difference, I understand that's a lot of money. But what I'm talking about is the people that's in the central office that's making overwhelming money to do the job they're doing. And us, and I know, and I'm gonna refer back to the coal mines, because that's what I know. If a coal miner gets his bachelor's degree or whatever he gets, he don't get extra money for it. And guess what? He can be called out at any time during the night, and he works 7 days a week most of the time if you're a superintendent, or if you're an assistant superintendent, or if you're a foreman on the section, and you don't get no extra pay. So your football games and stuff like that, I don't think you ought to be getting paid for them. That's part of your job. That's just my opinion. If you're hired to do a job, do the job. Whatever the pay is that you agree to pay, work for, that's what you should get. Shouldn't be getting extra bonuses on top of that. That's what I'm saying. Now, back to the transgender thing. Last time we had a board meeting, I was here, and I asked you to pass a resolution. If you want to take care of this county, pass a resolution that everybody will use the bathrooms in the school by the gender that's on their birth certificate. That ends it all, right there. It's simple enough to look down and see whether you're a boy or whether you're a girl. And it says right on your birth certificate whether you're a boy or whether you're a girl. Pass that in our county, be our hero, and let it go throughout the whole state. Thank you.
all right, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
State
My
your
name's
name and name.
Jennifer Fletcher. I live on Moccasin. I homeschool my daughter, but I don't know what tomorrow brings. So I can't say that she wouldn't end up in the public school. But I just wanted to comment. Teachers work 12 months. You know, they use the summer to plan their next school year. Teachers work after 4 o'clock. Teachers work more than anybody I know. That's all I've got.
All right, is there anyone else that has a comment on our 21-22 budget and our tax rate? All right, go
My
ahead,
name's
sir.
Larry Hughes. I live here in Russell County in Glade Hollow subdivision. I guess that's District 1. Tonight, the question is trust. It's trust of you. We have to trust you to follow God's guidance and man. I mean, I heard that the school budget, the board said that $900,000. How many people works at the central office? You don't have to answer that. I'm gonna ask you. Now say, this is where I'm trusting you to ask. See, I don't know all the numbers that we need to know to make a decision on these budgets, but it's your job. We trust you to do that. It's your legal obligation. You're a fiduciary for us, the people. You're supposed to represent us with honesty and integrity and do something. Do it right. I don't know what the school budget's made. I don't know what you need. I do know if you're $900,000 in the central office, I'm guessing there's 10 or 12 people in the office or less. That's $90,000. If you got 10 people, it's $90,000. I don't know how many people. $90,000 per person there seems to be a little high if you're saying $30,000 per teacher. Explain that to me. I don't understand that. You have a responsibility. You have a legal and a moral and godly obligation to see these budgets, to see the line items, to make the decision that you should be. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. They're right, they're right. Make the decision, look at the budget. You know, that's your position. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have a comment on our budget? Anyone out in the lobby? Anyone else out there? All right. See anybody coming? Okay. All right. Seeing none, we'll close our public comments on our public hearing on our budget. So Alonzo, if you have any information or anything more you want to discuss with that. Yeah, well, okay, before you speak, Alonzo, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. if That's all right. Steve asked for a
Thank
5-minute
you.
break. Thank you. We'll be right
Yes, ma'am.
back. Perfectly all right. Everybody agrees with you. Everybody back? Everybody's, okay? All right, Lonzo? Okay, everyone's back. We'll come back into session. We've closed our public hearing on the budget, and at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Lester, the county administrator, if he has any more comments on our budget and our needs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to first start off and read the resolution, and then I'll take questions from the board concerning the budget.
Could we close the door, because I can't hear?
That, yeah, quiet now. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. First, I'd like to read a resolution to approve the budget as amended as appropriate funds for the Russell County and the Russell County School Division for the fiscal year beginning July the 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th of 2022. Whereas the Budget and Finance Committee has submitted to the Russell County Board of Supervisors a proposed annual budget for the county for the fiscal years beginning July the 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022, which has been reviewed by the Board of Supervisors. Whereas it is necessary to adopt the said budget as appropriate sufficient funds to cover the requirements included herein. Of course, first, whereas the Board of Supervisors exercises independent judgment in concert with the Russell County School Board has considered the school's annual operating budget, and whereas after consideration of availability of funds, approval of the Russell County School Board fiscal year 2021-2022 educational budget is based upon funding from the federal government in the amount of $14,103,930.64, from the state of Virginia in the amount of $31,334,693, from local appropriations in the amount of $9,101,317, and other local revenues in the amount of $753,554. Be it therefore resolved that the annual budget in the sum of $1,901,883 for fiscal years 2021, 2022 be and is hereby approved for the operation of food service programs authorized and approved by the Russell County School Board, subject and contingent to the availability of funds. Be it still further resolved that $9,101,317 appropriated above the general fund for education includes $8,024,781 for the local contribution to the school division in support of the school operation budget. Be it still further resolved an annual appropriation in the sum of $1,076,536 for the fiscal years 2021, 22, and 2022 be and is hereby made for the school debt for a total amount of $9,101,317 appropriated for the Russell County School Division, subject to and contingent upon the availability of funds. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Russell County Board of Supervisors this 7th day of June, 17th of June, sorry. So it'll be a correction. 17th of June 2021, that the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget of the Russell County School Division for the school operations in amount of $57,195,377.64 be and is hereby approved, subject to and continues upon the availability of funds as indicated in the preamble hereto. I will take questions on one of the things also in the budget that I mentioned on the county side. Of course, these are as the school breaks down these classifications, these are the breakdowns functions of the governing board of supervisors: general administration, judicial administration, public safety, environmental control, general services, health and welfare, education, parks, recreation, culture, community development, non-departmental, capital outlay, and transfer of funds, and our debt service, for a total of $26,369,815. With that being said, I would like to take questions from the board supervisors.
You want to have a comment, Steve?
I don't have any comments. I'm ready to make a motion though.
Any further, anyone else with discussions?
Any discussions? If I see no, if I'm requested no questions, then I ask for a motion and approval for the Russell County FY 2021-22 fiscal year budget for the countywide Russell County Board of Supervisors and the Russell County School Board.
I have a motion that I want to make with respect to the budget.
And I have a question. May I do a question first? Or you want to wait for a motion, we'll do discussion? Doesn't it- Okay. I may have heard some hearsay, but there's some things going on in the Scott County area with their schools and their supervisors. And was that just on the news today? Because I haven't got all the information. Does anybody know, Dr. Brown or Mr. Lester?
Ms. Watts, I'll defer to Dr. Brown on that. There was
I
communication.
should have asked that before, and I apologize.
I did receive an email earlier today from the superintendent. Scott County, and I can read that. This was sent to the other superintendents in Region 7, and it says, hope you're doing well. Our Board of Supervisors has decided not to pay their share of the compensation supplement for the 2021-2022 school year. That amount was $238,935. The amount we would have received from the state is $1,019,279 if the county had paid their match. In total, our budget has lost $1,258,214 and will be unable to give the 5% pay increase.
Thank you. I serve on a workforce development board with a supervisor in Scott County, and I tried to reach out to him, and I could not get all that information, and I appreciate your bringing that tonight.
Okay,
Am I ready to make my motion now?
yes.
I have a motion that I want to make with respect to the school board budget. And I have a handout here. Basically, let me sort of summarize what this says. I'm just proposing that we fund the school board at our required local match plus the debt payment. And what that does to the total, it reduces the total amount, the $9,101,317, reduces it down by an amount of $236,922. The logic being that over the past 5 or 6 years, we've gotten, at the very least, right at $500,000 back in reversion money. So this is not any kind of cut. It's not a death blow, as apparently Scott County is talking about. The board is doing what is required by the state and by our commitments to the debt. The state requires the local minimum match. We've committed on the debt on some projects, so I feel like we're obligated to do that. But this additional $236,000 in the budget over that, I think we need to hold it back and just put it in the general fund. As a part of this motion, I also want to, that on page 3 of the resolution, there's a clause in here. It says, be it still further resolved that the annual contributions that are hereby appropriated shall be distributed on a monthly basis with the amount distributed not to exceed 1/12 of the total appropriation unless otherwise agreed to. Then there's a sentence that said, contributions to the Russell County School Division and the Russell County Department of Social Services are exempt from that limitation. I'm proposing in this motion that we strike that sentence, and which would put everybody on the monthly appropriation. And then this next sentence says, in addition, the county administrator may require written reports on how previous allocations were or was spent for any further disbursement made. And I'm proposing that we replace that may with shall. This is the only way that I can see that we can actually get down to what a real budget is like. And I'm gonna, here's a copy of my hand sketch notes that I want all the board members. Alonzo, if you want one of these. Dr. Brown as well.
Okay. Here's the second.
My motion is basically to revise the resolution as per the handout that I gave you. And that gives the school, if that money goes back to the general fund, then it'll really kind of be like a contingency fund. If the school needs it, they can work it out with Lonzo, and if it's a legitimate cost, he can bring it before the board, and the board votes on it and approves it, then we're good to go with it. So you all may want a minute to digest all this.
I'll second it.
Yes, you can have discussion.
Dr. Brown, what would that $200,000 possibly do to the 5% raise that's proposed?
Well, unlike Scott County, we had planned on level funding from the Board of Supervisors. So, with that being said, the Board of Supervisors did not offer their share, which was $283,000, as I described earlier, of their part of the 5% pay raise. So we're absorbing, finding ways. We have cut positions as far as not filling those retirees and people leaving. We're trying our best to not fill those positions if at all possible. So far, we're about 7 positions that we've been able to absorb, and we're going to try to do more. In addition to that, I spoke to the non-SOQ funded positions. Again, that's a local expense at 100%. So what does that mean? A 5% pay raise for Russell County Public Schools is $1.425 million total, regardless of where it comes from. The state of Virginia is giving Russell County $908,000 for their part of the 5% pay raise. So we have been working at the board to absorb $517,000 just to give the 5% pay raise. In addition to that, as I shared earlier, you have the minimum wage increase that is over $200,000 that we did not ask for from the Board of Supervisors. Well, we asked for it in a budget of need, but we've been told plan for level funding at best, and that's what we've done. So we're actually absorbing $750,000 this year if the Board of Supervisors level funds. If we're trying to find another $236,000, we're looking at $1 million. And my feeling at this point in time is that we're not going to be able to find that. With that being the case, we will have to return the $908,000 that the state has for us for the compensation supplement. So, like Scott County, we would have to return the state share of the 5% pay raise because we can't give the 5% pay raise.
Okay. I still hold to my motion. I think that's nothing short of blackmail. And what I said is that What that said is that money will be held in the general fund. And if you need it, you are welcome to come back and ask for it. If you, historically, we've got $500,000 back every year. If, in fact, you need that money, it's allocated on a monthly basis, 1/12 every month, right, Lonzo? Okay. If it comes down that you need that money, go to Lonzo. To me, that's a legitimate excuse, That's a legitimate reason to reallocate that money. But, I stand by my motion.
Well, I've got a comment too. I mean, if you got somebody making 100,000 and somebody making 30 and they get a 5% increase, all the money is going to the one that's making $100,000. I mean, is there ever going to be a time that we look at, if you can't live on $100,000, somebody's got some serious issues. But I mean, if you got somebody making 30 and you can't freeze the pay of those employees till you can ever catch up to get these other employees justified, I just don't understand it. I mean, you got awful good educators and good math teachers. Maybe you ought to bring them to the table and let them figure this thing out, because it just don't add up. You're never going to catch up, never going to make it right with the people on the lower end scale, and we're never going to make a dent in it as long as we keep on this track.
I've also got a question there. Without this 236,000, is that going to do away with 800 or the 900 some thousand at the beginning? Each month, if you was to come back and get it, it wouldn't. You have to have it up front. You can't wait 12 months later, correct?
He's asking you a question, Katie.
I'm not the bad guy here. I'm just delivering the information. I'm pretty sure, and I have to check on this, Mr. Breeding, but I'm pretty sure that money has to be dedicated in the budget for the schools. It can't be a thing of here it is if you need it type thing, because that's not guaranteed. We can't create a budget legally unless the money is there. The money has to be guaranteed to be there for the budget. And as far as the 12-month thing goes, I can explain why that was in there originally, and that's because we have disproportionate payroll when we look at summer pay for our employees. As I shared, our teachers are actually, again, 10-month contract folks, and we save money and we pay them over the summer if they want that. Some choose it, some don't. So with that being said, and with payroll being 80 to 85% of our budget, it's nearly impossible for us to have a clean 1/12 every month, because we don't know how many people this particular year will want us to save money every month so they can have a July and August paycheck. Some may say, I'll do that on my own. Others want us to do it. So that's why that was in there originally. But to answer your question, Mr. Ray, yes, you are exactly right.
You cannot adjust one of your other line items? Who knows where that $236,000 was allocated?
That's true, but again, right now we're trying to find $750,000 to cover a required minimum wage increase and a hopeful increase of 5% for our employees. So if we're going to also be looking for another, again, $250,000 basically, that's a total of $1 million. So we are looking at level funding, but we're looking at $1 million worth of reduction. So again, that's something that, again, I'll talk to our director of finance about that, but right now my perception is that it's going to be very, very, very unlikely that we're going to be able to do a 5% pay increase if we're trying to dig up $1 million. And again, we're taking money from operations, we're reducing staffing and so forth in order to cover what we're looking at now. I mean, 5 years ago, the Board of Supervisors gave us $9.7 million. The year after that, $9.4 million. The last 2 years, $9.1 million. Well, that's $600,000, and it came out of debt load, I understand. That's $600,000 that we could have used toward leaving it in there and it going to a raise above and beyond. that amount of money, $600,000, would have been a 2% pay raise above and beyond others around us. So, again, I promise you I will do everything that I can. But again, it's a partnership in us making this happen as far as helping our teachers out.
Okay, there's been a motion made and a second and discussion. Any further discussion? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Can you give us a brief second here to look through the?
Yes, we'll do.
We're, as y'all are talking, we're making sure that everything is in compliance with all the codes.
Okay. Problem.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board. Do you want to elaborate on it?
Three? You feel? So we have a motion on the floor, second discussion. Any more discussion?
Is there anything from legal counsel that we need to know?
Maybe if I step back a little, can you hear me? I mean, I guess I can answer any questions the board might have about the legality of any actions proposed. Yes.
We will.
Yes, I mean, and we discussed this a little briefly at our last meeting, and I think I quoted the statute that said that you could either appropriate to the school board in a lump sum or by the 9 classifications, and the statute did allow you to say you could do that by a periodic basis. The only thing I will advise the board about written reports prior to dispersing it, I don't think that you can withhold the money from the school board, and I assume, just from a practical standpoint, that the written reports that you're going to get are the expenditures that they approve. That's how they spend their money every month, and they approve that each month at their board meeting. And I don't know if Lonzo already gets a copy of that or is aware of that. That would be the only limitation I would see on that one amendment.
Well, we allocate a lump sum, and we don't tell them which line item to put it in. I don't think we should do that, My personal opinion is that school board should have taxing authority, and I know that's a whole different subject, but, if they need money, they need to have the ability to tax for it. And I'll be a big proponent of that if we could get our legislator to go for it. So you're saying that you don't think it's legal to withhold the money? Is that right?
No, prior to them submitting a report. I think, again, they're going to approve their expenditures every month. That's what they do. But if, I don't think that part would be enforceable. You could say, we didn't get our report this month, that way we're not going to appropriate this money to you. I don't think you could do that because you're doing it on a periodic basis, and some of that would be that required match that you're required to give. So, I don't think that you would be able to do that part of it. But I don't see a problem in getting that written report either, just because there will be a financial report approved by the school board at every monthly meeting that they have.
Mr. Brady, when you're looking at the sentence on the last, and there's one key word in there, and Katie can chime in. It says, in addition, the county administrator shall require written reports on how previous allocations were spent before, key word, before. See, key word, before any future disbursements are made.
Right after spent, put a period.
Okay.
So are you making a motion to amend your motion? that change?
Or do you make, or she's asking?
I'll make a well, I would like to modify my motion to include that.
Yes. So
No,
we
I'll
will-
second it.
We'll end the sentence after spent period and take out, strike the before any future disbursements are made.
Correct.
Okay, yes, sir.
All right. Fun? All right, we've had our motion, we've had the amendment to it, we've had, and a second by David. So all those in favor of the amendment as Steve has presented with withholding, what, 236,000? Right,
Well, it's on your sheet there.
okay. All those in favor?
Hand.
Hand, yeah, if you want to. All those opposed? All right, thank you. Now, do we have a motion to approve the budget for the Russell County for 21-22?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, Horace. All right, all those in favor of approving the budget as presented? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, budget approved as stated. All right, the next thing we have is,
May I make a statement about this?
Katie, can you
I'm,
talk? Or we want to wait
No.
until the end?
N-
Wait.
You-
It
to-
might wait,
to-
might be best if we
Wait
wait
to
till
the end.
Madam
But
Clerk.
in conclusion, thank you, Madam Chair, and Board for approving the budget. But in the good note of it, one of the good things I want to point out for the Board of Supervisors, you did not raise taxes this year. You gave the level of services or above. There was no increases in any real estate or personal property. And I appreciate the Board of Supervisors, and thank you. Hold your comments. Thank you. We did not raise any taxation. We delivered the same services as the services. So again, Board of Supervisors, this is another year of no increased taxation. Thank you.
All right, next thing is any of our citizens' comments on any of the other public concerns that was left over from our last meeting. I do have this, and I'm assuming you meant to speak, when you signed this, was speaking on the budget. Mr. Dameron, did you want to speak anything more? Okay, thank you, dear. Katie?
You can speak and address the board, but it's generally not a back and forth conversation.
One thing, Stephen Dameron, I'm from Swords Creek. Y'all was talking about not being able to give the 5% pay increase to the teachers, but you can guarantee minimum wage to go up. Why can't we guarantee a 5% pay increase for the teachers? If we can guarantee on one hand, why can't we guarantee on the other hand?
Sorry. I'm sorry, we can't, it's a public comment. We'll speak with you later. Mr. Nunley? Go. Okay, Mr. Kaiser? Mr. Nunley? Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Kaiser?
Again, I'll go back to this number, because it's been said again that, that we've got to put more money to the school system for them to raise teacher wages, and I'm sorry, I'm having a real hard, I mean, I'm not a genius or anything, but I can do math. That's what I do for a living. And when we're funding per student $500 more than the state average, that means we're spending more money than the average county in the state, and yet we've got the third lowest teacher pay. I'm sorry, guys. The money is going somewhere, and it isn't to the teachers. So there needs to be a forensic audit or something of the school system to find out what's going on here. Because there's no way we can be spending the amount of money that we're spending and have the third lowest teacher pay, and then the excuse is, well, you gotta put more money to the school system. We're already giving more money to the school system than every other county in the state nearly. I mean, higher than the average. So the math doesn't add up. So something the school board, something that this board needs to look into. I know you've got limited control of the school board, but I can tell you one thing. If we don't get to the bottom of this, there's gonna be heads roll next election, for sure. Now, that being said, I still am asking the county to look into this. School, everybody says voucher. I know you probably don't have the authority to create a voucher, but you do have the authority to tax and spend. Therefore, you have the authority to create tax credit. So I'm asking you, let's look into it, appoint a committee, let's get the ball rolling. We need to have school choice. The school system, you've already allocated the money for it. They're going to have all that money. I'm hoping at the end of this year, once all these students get pulled out of the school system, that you see a big old hefty, big old pile of money coming right back to the county. Because if you don't, then they're spending it faster than they can get it on purpose. That's what that tells you, because a whole bunch of students are going to leave the school system. So you need to take the first step now to look and see what can be done in helping parents have the choice financially. Because, yeah, you can have the choice. Dr. Brown said, yeah, you got the choice in Virginia. Virginia's a school choice state. The choice is send your money to the county that sends it to the school board, and don't send your kid there and then pay for homeschool on top of that. That's your choice. So give parents the financial independence to be able to do what's right for the children. I've got 824 signatures here, and that's within 6 days. You give me 6 more days, I'll double that number. There's a ton of people that demand this right now, and you need to step up. You can be the first county in the state. You have a unique opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity to be the first county in the state to fund school choice on the county level. You do it here, it will spread across the state. It'll spread across the nation. Pastor Don's right. Maybe this is the first step. As Christians, every one of you, I believe, professes to be a Christian. This is your chance. You could be the difference. You could be the first step in making a difference in this county, in this state, and in this nation. Will you take that first step? This is a journey. Every journey starts with one step. The first step, out the door. Let's go. I'm asking you to do that tonight. Make the first step.
All right, that's all that was on our list. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to our constitutional officers and requests. Seeing none, all right, matters before the board. And at this time, I'm going to be rude and hop in front if y'all don't care, please. I would like to ask Mr. Breeding if he will serve with me, and we will meet with Dr. Brown to discuss the budget with the salaries for our teachers. Could you do that, Steve?
Go ahead.
And David, I'm going to ask you to be the alternate because I'm fixing to be a granny again in the next few weeks. And if I'm not here, not available, would you care to please sit in and help if
Yes, ma'am. I
you'd be
appreciate
my
that.
alternate?
Yes, ma'am.
Because as many of you know, my first grandbaby was 12 weeks early. She only weighed 2 pounds, and so we're with a high-risk pregnancy, and Granny's going to be out of county. That's my first priority, y'all. So, David, if you don't care, I will be gone. Granny will be down the road, and I'll ask you two to meet with Dr. Brown, and let's start this for our folks, for our teachers. They deserve it. I was there 39 years, and they talked about insurance. It didn't do me any good. I was on my husband's insurance policy. You know, they'd say, we can't give you a raise, but we're going to give you your insurance. Well, that really didn't do me as a teacher any good because I didn't need their insurance, and I didn't get the raise, and I didn't get the insurance. So we do need to work with our folks. They are hard workers, and this pandemic has really, really shown how hard all of our folks have worked, you all, not just our teachers, our social workers. I work with the DSS. They've been out. Our sheriff's department, our rescue squad people. We've got good people in this county, and we need to back them. We need to help support them. So that's all the comments I have. Tim, do you have anything to say, sir?
No, ma'am.
Lou?
I do. I want to say a hearty thank you to those who have come tonight and sat through this arduous process. And it is not without deep consideration, but I cannot say no to the teachers. I cannot say no to the school board. I feel like in my heart that we need to press forward, and there is a way forward, I think. And I think that at this point, at this juncture in time, we're talking about this, and I think it's good and healthy. So I do appreciate you, and I have your best interest at heart, but we need to move forward and make sure that our schools and our teachers don't lose one dime of money. So thank you.
David?
Yeah, I want to talk about a motion to do this, but I'd like to also bring it up as a recommendation first so we can have a little bit of discussion about it. But I think each board member here needs a personal representative that we could select to form a committee to actually look at the opportunity. Did you already have that in the motion? Did you? I'm stepping on you? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I feel like that, we need it, one thing so critical in our local community is communication. I think that we fail miserably by not communicating things, and then all of a sudden it flies up in somebody's face and they have to catch up on it at the last minute and figure it out, and they get upset. So I really think that we need a committee formed, one person per board of supervisors that would represent this opportunity to meet and discuss most of these issues that we're dealing with.
Can I
you
comment
can go
on
ahead.
here before you make your motion? After listening to what everybody said tonight, I just feel compelled to try to set up some sort of committee like David is talking about to explore the following. One would be alternatives to fund alternative education options through the county, using non-state funds, which makes them independent. And there's a lot of different options you might look at. Local money, we'd have to make sure it was legal. There might be some foundational money. There might be some grants available. I'm willing to, talk about anything like that. And then, as an additional thing to look at, is to look at ways we can address all these radical state and federal unfunded mandates that are being dropped into our laps right now. And I don't know what to do. They hand it down to you and say, here it is. It's state law. You have to do it. Oh, you can draft your own, but it has to be at least as stringent or more stringent than what we've given you. And you put boards like our school board in a position that, they either vote for it, and I've heard them say, I have to resign. Well, it's not that they have to resign, because I asked Katie about that. It's just if they vote against something that's a state law, they open themselves up to a personal lawsuit for discrimination, which their insurance company will not, cover them because it's they went against the state law. So the base of our problem is federal and state government. I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't get out there and vote next time and look at the candidates and look what they're, you're going to have to pick a candidate that is in line with your sense of morality and your sense of ethics and supports the things that you support. So go out there and look at both of them. And we have got to get people out to vote, because I'm telling you, the future of Virginia rests on November. And if November doesn't, go one way, then, I'm looking for property in Tennessee. David, if you want to amend your motion.
No, I'll amend that motion to include these items that Steve spoke about.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
Okay.
Can we send this through the attorney first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But since it's a committee, I don't, a committee doesn't have any really standing to do, all they can do is make a recommendation. I don't know if we'd be doing anything illegal.
I don't think you'll, I mean, again, and my understanding would be this would be an unpaid committee. There'd be no compensation
Yeah.
from the board
Voluntary.
for that. I guess a logistical issue would be like how are they gonna serve? Is one representative gonna come and give a report each month to the board, or what do you envision there?
Well,
mean, it's
I
more
don't
like
know
a
if you can
practical-
report each month to the board or not. They just need to get together and discuss some options, and then when they're ready to report, who knows? It may take 3 or 4 months to filter through all this nonsense that we're looking at. You know, right now on one of them, in alternatives, it may take 3 or 4 months, you know, to even develop a list of alternatives. I think it's just, somebody said, we've got to at least take the first step. And this is all I can come up with to take a first step right now. Next board meeting, I may have some other idiotic idea, you know? But we've got to do something, you know? I just feel like we're sitting here spinning our wheels until we make some sort of effort. And we may find after a month or two that this is not the approach that we need to take, but maybe this group could tell us how we need to go with it.
And I don't have a problem with that at all, but, you know, when I want to choose my representative, then I need guidelines. So who's going to decide the guidelines, and how is that going to be rolled out so that it is fair and equitable? Do you have a sense of that? We just put a committee together and they just come back with ideas?
I think that's exactly what it is.
That's what you
You
wanna
pick
do?
somebody that you have some confidence in, who has their heart in the right place and wants to represent, you know, the county on this committee, and let them, you know, there's nothing etched in stone on this. This is new ground as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if anybody's ever done this before to, you know, figure out ways to, you know, combat these crazy radical mandates that we're seeing, or, you know, to figure out some sort of other funding option, you know. And we may find out, you know, after they come back with it, it's nothing the county can do or the local government can do, but maybe they'll come up with a foundation that might want to support something like this. Who knows? But we got to do something.
Katie, any other legal advice?
I
for
don't see a
us?
problem as long as, you know, they don't have any kind of specific authority or they're not paid. I mean, they're an advisory committee, and I
'Cause
think
they
the board
really-
can do that.
Because really, there's no bylaws for them, there's not paid, that type of thing, so.
And your bylaws allow for you to appoint advisory
Advisory
committees.
And when
Yeah.
if and when recommendations are made to the board, they can take it or leave it.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. All right, is there any other comments on this motion?
I'd like to say that, there's a lot of misinformation, like someone spoke. You get a lot of misinformation. One of the guys said he got misinformation, and communication has been a problem. I say lack of communication creates a lot of problems. We've had that, and if we can do committees or whatever, we have several problems here. And we need to get down to it, and it's not gonna be overnight, like someone said. We need to get started and see where we go, and if we just sit around doing nothing, twiddling our thumbs, then we're not gonna get anywhere. So let's decide to move forward in a smart, progressive manner. In other words, when I say progressive, I don't mean sit still. Move forward, try to get something done. Try to find out if this is misinformation or if this is true information or whatever. Because I've been overwhelmed with phone calls and complaints and things like that, and I couldn't answer all those questions. I cannot solve those problems, but I would like to, but I can't do it by just sitting still. Let's begin to get some things going that we haven't had going.
I would expect this committee to, you know, work with other groups, say like the ministerial associations in Russell County, and mountain movers or whoever, you know. But we need to get people on there that want to see some results and try to get. Well, I agree with Horace. You know, we've got to do something. We've got to get a start somewhere.
One of the things I'd like to say is say if I selected Mr. Dameron to be my representative, and I could meet at the community center in Swords Creek, and you could round up Lynn and others in, you know, to meet there, so we could have discussion, we could have dialogue, we could look at options and opportunities and ways that we can generate more lobbying in our direction than opposition. I think that's what this is. I think it's just to get out there in your districts and have these conversations with the people, not expect them to come to our meeting. We need to go to them.
Nate, how many signatures did you have on this? 824. So, yeah, there's 824 people who are interested right now.
All right. Any other discussion on this? All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. We've had discussion. All those in favor of developing a committee to look at solutions for our schools? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Steve, any other comments? No. Oris, any other comment? And Carl?
Madam Chair, I got one more thing. I was approached there during the break from some gentlemen that, and this is actually goes to Dr. Brown, I guess. One of them had asked me, you know, in our Board of Supervisors meetings and our school board meetings, we actually say the prayer and we do the Pledge of Allegiance. And is there a time at our schools, at all of our schools, for this opportunity for our kids to have the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer?
Pledge of allegiance, and a moment of silence to where each individual can have their own opportunity, if they choose, to pray if they want, say whatever they want. In the same breath, it can impose on someone else who maybe has a different belief, and so forth. So to answer your question, we can do the Pledge of Allegiance and definitely a moment of silence where that person has the opportunity to do as they so choose with that.
Thank you for the answer.
Doctor, are you saying that's the only permissible thing, that they got to do in a moment of silence?
Well, we have things
And
like...
why are we imposing, if we, back when I was in school, they prayed over the PA system. You had a minister or someone to pray over the PA system.
Sure. When I went to school...
I know that's a thing in the past, but you take the prayer out, you take the Bible out, and now you can come on with quite a few more things.
I'll speak to that as being a principal. We did every morning, and we let each classroom take turns, and the children all loved that. And it was so precious when, you know, the little first graders had come up there to say the pledge. You got some good interpretation of words, but it was okay. It was wonderful. But yeah, they do every morning on the PA system. They have the pledge, and then they have a moment of silence. And if you want to have your moment of silence, you bow your head, you have it. And then if I don't want to, I mean, you know, we have them that way. They just stand there and they don't do anything. But they do, it is allowed, and they do have it every day at school. They still do it. Yeah, they have the pledge, and it's usually first thing, and then they have like morning announcements and that kind of thing. So they can do that.
Well, it has changed
And
since
that's
back,
all
of course,
schools.
I'm probably the oldest one on the board here, but when I was in elementary school and high school, first year of high school, they actually had a minister to pray over the PA system, and you referenced that prayer.
Yeah, they still do that. They still let the children do it. And all the classrooms take turns, and the kids love it because it gets to be their turn to do it. All right, anyone else? Any other discussions? Any other matters? All right, at this time, we have a motion for adjournment. Our next meeting will be July the 12th. Because of the 4th of July, we're pushing it back one week because of celebration. So do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
David, do we have a second?
Second.